Okay, Mike, proceed.
Okay, we can now skip all the way to item number 9. Board action to authorize the chairman's signature on a letter of support for the supporters of the St. Vincent National Wildlife Refuge. The supporters, a nonprofit organization, are applying for a small matching grant to develop plans for repairing and preserving the historic Hansard Fry House at 96 Fifth Street in Apalachicola. This house, which is on the National Register of Historic Places, was purchased to house the headquarters and visitor center for the refuge.
That is, where they used to have the Harbor House down at the Mill Pond, that they no longer have that contract with the city, so they bought this building. I think it's a good thing, a pleasure of the board on
So
that.
moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Massey, second by Commissioner Sanders. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, item 10 is one of those things more so for the public. Staff is receiving complaints of unlicensed contractor activity in the county. Because the county's building official issues all permits, reviews all plans, does all inspections, and investigates all complaints regarding building and construction, it makes it difficult for him to do random rounds throughout the county looking for this type of illegal activity. Therefore, staff is asking for the public's assistance by reporting what may be considered illegal building and construction activity. Reporting this activity is as simple as contacting the county's planning, building, and zoning office by using Report a Concern link on the county's website or giving us a call at 850-653-9783. I mean, there was a time, commissioners, you know, you had a official, you had a plans reviewer, you had a separate inspector. Those days aren't right now. So it's kind of hard for us to keep track of all this activity, you know. And so I just want the public's assistance with that. Item number 11. Recently, staff received a few requests for metal buildings to be placed in R1 zone areas in the county and be used as single-family homes. Last week, we received an inquiry about the use of a shipping container as a single-family home. I've added some pictures to your packet of what staff considers appropriate and inappropriate metal building single-family homes. I recommend that the board send this issue to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a recommendation. We meet next Tuesday, as a matter of fact. In looking at the pictures, Alan pointed out something that's obvious, but you know, it's the porch kind of makes the difference.
One of the things, these buildings are all lacking, these metal buildings, they don't have any, they're just square buildings, they don't have a front porch. And that's sometimes the defining issue of houses, is you make people put a porch on there. So we're not opposed to having metal buildings as residential structures. They're a lot cheaper to build, and if they meet the wind load requirements, doesn't matter to us. But, you know, they look like storage buildings, they look like garages, and so for that to be the only structure on the property, one solution is to say, okay, you have to have a front porch across the whole width of the house. I mean,
So are they exempt from the Southern Building Code?
no, they meet all the building code requirements, but the county does, in our R1 zoning, we don't have any, and I'm not really wanting to get too far into this, we don't have any architectural standards for what a house should look like in Franklin County. So long as you come in with a 1,000 square foot footprint and it's heated and cooled and got a bathroom and a kitchen, it can look like anything and be a house.
And how does that affect other adjoining property owners'
Value.
value?
It affects value if it doesn't look like a house.
That's the
Well, I
problem
mean,
right there.
that's something that needs to be considered. You
That's
can't
what-
have somebody build a $500,000 home and then bring a storage container up next to it, and now the home's worth $200,000.
That's where we're going, but that's what we're planning on doing, is see what the system standards.
Yes, that's what
Is somebody gonna be at the meeting
I will, at the Planning and Zoning meeting, I will.
to let them know we have concerns about it, is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and what those concerns are as far
Yes,
as
sir.
the board's
I
concerned?
will, Amy will, of course, Amy runs the meeting, so,
Well-
yeah.
That's like the trend of those, what they call the tiny houses. And this one, the brown one up here at the top, that's exactly what it looks like. But that looks sort of like an overseas shipment box.
That's what they're talking about, shipping containers.
Yeah, that's a shipping container, Commissioner,
Shipping box.
yes.
If you'll pull out the metal buildings, homes out of Maine and New Jersey, and all, it has metal buildings, then it has pole barn metal houses, that they all stand 135 mile-an-hour winds, and they're beautiful homes. You'll pull them up, that they sell, and they're up to 5,000-6,000 square foot to 1,100 square foot. They have front porches on them, and
Well, the two pictures in the bottom of what I sent you, that's acceptable now,
Yeah.
and those are metal building kits. Those
yeah,
are homes,
that's what I'm talking about. The metal building kits, they're nice.
home kits, sorry.
Yeah, the home kits.
Well, I see this as a different version of something the county fought 30, 40 years ago, when people were building accessory uses, or actually they weren't building use, they were getting power poles and bringing campers down here. So someone who's not really gonna make Franklin County their full-time home, they're trying to build a structure down here that they can use at the least expensive cost possible. But sometimes that least expensive cost affects the neighbors.
Right.
And they're getting these metal freestanding buildings here.
This, this is an issue that really needs to be looked at. I'm not saying we can't do it, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I'm just saying we need to make sure that the county knows what it's doing, and maybe R1 is not where we want it. Maybe we want to create a category itself that would allow these things,
And that's an alternative.
You gotta look out for the adjoining property owner when you're just allowing this stuff to go up everywhere and anywhere. So, I mean, it's gonna be, to me, it needs to be looked at in depth by the P and Z, with their recommendations, but maybe we need to create another zoning category where these things can be and where they can't be. R1 just allows them to go anywhere. And how that affects other people's property values. Most people's, the average working guy, his home is his big
Castle.
investment of his life.
Yeah.
And to sit here and allow something to happen that's going to degrade that and lower those property values, is something that we need to look at genuinely, Mike. So if you would take all these concerns to the P and Z,
I will.
and if you're gonna attend the meeting, you could relay that, and get their true thoughts of what we need to do. I'm not saying we need to outlaw it, but it may be that we wanna put in certain areas or create a different zoning category for it. And another thing is whether you just go buy a portable building and call that a metal house. There needs to be some standards for it, as Alan was talking, 1,000 square feet, heated, air, and cooled.
Well, we have those in place. You have to have 1,000 square feet. It has to meet the wind load requirements, the flood requirements. But it still could be a square metal building with no front porch, no nothing, just a square.
But you have to think about it in the context of, do you want one right next to you?
That's correct.
Do you want your property values to fall? Because, and I understand people, this may be what they can afford, this may be a low-cost alternative. I understand all of that. I'm not saying we should outlaw it, I'm saying we need to make it move cautiously where we allow them to be put and how we allow them to be utilized. And then we need to develop standards for it, specifically for these metal shipping containers or whatever they are. It needs to be looked at in depth before the county starts issuing permits to allow this to be used.
Yes.
And if you could convey that to the P and Z,
And
Michael,
I
I
will, so
appreciate
keep in
it.
mind with that, it might take a couple P and Z meetings before.
It may take more than that, but I want
make
to
a
do it right
recommendation
when
to
we
the
do it.
board. Yes.
I don't care if it takes 6 months, whatever it takes, but we want to do it right and make sure that we're protecting the adjoining property owners and make sure we're putting this in place and doing it the right way.
That's the reason I said that's because the metal buildings, you talk about the containers are way different than them nice homes, the pole barn homes they building. They weigh up for 60, 70, 80, 90, $100,000 for them. That other thing, just go pick one of them up for.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We need
$3,000.
development standards for this, so it's going to take a while to get this.
Yeah.
And you may have to get the county attorney involved in those issues also.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna have to, because some of these things on a different level. I mean, if you dealing with a house, made out of steel, or steel structured house, that's not like going and get one of these sheds, but you got that covered with that 1,000 feet. I mean, from what you're saying, you got to have 1,000 feet, but that's.
But it needs to be
cover that.
secured too. You get a tornado come and starts throwing these metal buildings everywhere because they're not locked down. They don't have a genuine foundation like a house has, and all this stuff is not tied together to the ground. These are things that need to be looked at. I mean, you just can't just set them out there on a piece of property and then have them blow everywhere.
No, that's already in there. I don't want to mislead that it's a totally unregulated environment. If you try to build a house in an R1 area, you have to have certified plans that meet the wind load requirements. You have to have, so that is already, our concern is that these things don't look like houses.
Houses.
I mean, they are built to be a house as far as the strength of the building. That's already covered by the building code and by our wind load requirements in Franklin County. It says that they don't look like houses.
Well, how do you tie down a shipping container? I mean, you need to make sure this stuff's done.
I understand, but before we issue a permit, that's already being required of us.
Okay.
So we're not recreating that part of the problem. We've already solved that. Before we issue a building permit, you have to have engineered plans describing how that is tied down, and an engineer has signed and sealed that. But what we're concerned with people are getting buildings, and basically what they're doing is they're building a 4,000 square foot They want to build a 4,000 square foot metal building, and embedded in the corner of that 4,000 square feet is 1,000 square feet
Of home.
Of home. And so basically, they may have a large RV or a couple of boats, and they want to put it under a roof. And I understand that, I understand what they're trying to get at, but they're really minimizing the cost of housing at maybe the expense of all the neighbors. And
Well, I brought that issue up too. I mean, there's a host of issues that genuinely need to be
But
looked
the issue
at.
being tied down and the structure, that's where we're already have solved that problem. It's just, what's the building look like? That's where
The
we're,
aesthetics of it,
yeah.
and how it affects people's property value.
Values.
The tie down just like a trailer, everything, but you got to watch it, 'cause it's just gonna be a big, like you said, they saving money
Well, I think, I was
and it's gonna,
Yeah, both
Put
barn houses is
$200,000
coming, you have to put a foundation down, a cement foundation, you have to tie it down with bolts. It's bolted down just like a house. I mean, I just pulled them up, they're pretty, they're
Yeah, no.
beautiful homes, they look like a home.
right, and we make, what I think is happening is people who have already spent money on essentially a home, like $250,000 RV, and they want to come down here, they know they can't get a power pole, and so they're looking at what else can they do to utilize their property without building another house, because they consider their RV to be their house.
you just gonna have to set up, like you said, you go through there and set up something, 'cause it's gonna take, it ain't gonna come overnight to set this up.
No.
It's gonna take time.
Okay, Mike.
All right, item number 12, Ms. Kim Bodine apologized she couldn't be here today, but she sent me her information and of Career Source. Ask for board action to approve the chairman's signature on the following items contingent on the Attorney Schuler's review. I had some trouble getting the documents open, so that's why Attorney Schuler has not had a chance to review this. Item A, the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act require local workforce development areas to partner, work with specific entities within the community, and to outline their commitments through an execution of a memorandum of understanding between the partners. There are 4 partners and MOUs. There's Hanley Technical Center, the Gulf Coast State College, Vocational Rehabilitation, and the National Caucus on Black Age Senior Community Service Employment Program. There are 4 MOUs with these, they're all standard. And the reason I'm asking for you guys to approve, because they have to be submitted before our next regular meeting. So if you guys approve it and Attorney Schuler reviews and approves it, then I'll get your signature, Mr. Chairman. Pleasure
Pleasure of the board.
But it's required anyway for workforce, Career Source workforce.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Lockley, second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion?
I want to ask a question if I could. Is, I know it's not directly related, but isn't some of this workforce stuff, it would tie in with what our superintendent was saying earlier, we're trying to, at all, you know what I'm saying?
I could.
Okay.
Could.
Okay.
Get
just wondered.
in touch with Mrs. Moses.
Okay.
Sure would. Good idea. Rather not. I'm
Any
sorry,
further
did you-
discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? That motion carries.
Item B, local workforce development areas that receive an initial designation by the governor may be granted a subsequent local area designation for local workforce development boards if, for the 2 most recent program years, the local area performed successfully and sustained fiscal integrity, and in the case of a local area in a planning region, met the regional planning requirements as described in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. That's section 1, section C, number 1. The chief elected officials, you all must submit a request for subsequent designation to Career Source Florida and the DOE every 2 years, beginning July 1st, 2017. The application to request the subsequent designation is due by April 15th of the renewal year. And so they want this, they said it'll be beneficial for us to get this designation. And again, it has to be submitted by April 15th. We meet on the 18th. And so I'll have the attorney review it and then bring it back for your signature if the board allows.
Pleasure of the board.
Like going through Kim, man.
Yes, sir.
Voting.
Yes. And she'll be here at some point in a future meeting to review these more in depth with you guys and give you a better update.
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Lockley. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Massey. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
And I'm going to pass, Commissioner, pass this down as I address item 13. That just came in an email as we were here this morning. At the last meeting, there was a request from the Small County Coalition asking the board to send a letter of support to the county's legislative delegation. This letter asks our delegation to add a provision to the Senate Joint Resolution 1774, could be a bill by now, that would provide a compensation provision for fiscally constrained counties. Franklin County is one of the 29 fiscally constrained counties. The letter to our county's delegation does not ask that the fiscally constrained counties are exempted from the legislation, therefore preventing property owners from receiving the additional $25,000 in homestead exemptions.
On the first 100,000.
On our first 100,000. I say that to say, there was some confusion that
There
it was
was.
an exemption. It could be my fault, maybe the way I compared us to the school board being exempt. That's not what they're looking for. There's a long provision, language that they want added that would provide provision to us as one of the fiscally constrained counties, if this legislation passed. And there's that email right there talks about an update that's happening this morning, right now, from Mr. Chris Doolan, that talks about other counties outside of the fiscally constrained group that also they're looking for compensation also because of how bad it is.
I've had a lot of questions asked by constituents and just average people about this, Are they gonna give us 25 grand, off of property, off of the
Another
assessment?
25 grand.
Yeah, and they didn't understand that it was going to limit the amount of money that the county could generate through the current millage rate that we have, So it's when you sit down and explain to them exactly what, you either gonna have to raise the millage or you're gonna have to cut something.
That's right.
I mean, that's the bottom line if this goes through as currently proposed. You talk to different organizations, nobody wants to be cut. I mean, do you cut the library? I mean, where do you get this money from?
Yeah?
Do you stop the roadside pickups? And everybody don't want that because they said everybody's gonna take it out in the woods and throw it out if the county don't pick it up. I mean, there's a host of issues that we're gonna have to deal with come budgeting time, which is not very far away, of how you're going to, where you going to cut, what organization is gonna be cut, what service is gonna be deleted that the people need and want. Something's gonna have to give. And then they limit, there's another bill in the legislature that limits what you can do with your millage rate.
How you can go.
That's
right.
another whole
See,
ballgame. So
you're
they're
getting
taking money
squeezed
away.
on both ends.
Trying to give the people a break and yeah, I'd like my taxes lowered too, but I don't see that happening because you're either gonna have to cut something, somebody's gonna do without, or we're gonna have to raise the millage rate. To me, it's basically another unfunded mandate. And it may be needed in some counties. Some counties may have, some of these counties has got multi-millions of dollars in reserves and all that. We don't have that. We've tried to provide a service to the people at the lowest possible cost we can do it and still give them the services that they want and desire. But this is gonna put you in a whole nother realm here when we come time to budget, so. It's a pleasure of the board of how we want to address item number 13. I'll leave that to the
Yeah.
board.
And, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd like to say a few words. We've worked hard on the board to keep the millage down because we understand as taxpayers ourselves that, when you raise the millage, you raise the taxes. So we've done that. But this, if this bill is passed, you're talking about a cut of about $752 million statewide to county budgets. And probably that's gonna be somewhere, I can't venture, I talked to the property appraiser the other day. She had a preliminary number, but now things has changed. So it's gonna probably be anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 out of your tax money that you're not gonna have. So you're definitely right, Mr. Chairman. You are gonna have to either cut programs or whatever. But, the big thing is here, and I can say this board supported that. When we were able to look in there, in 2006, we had, 2005, 2006, we had the land boom crash, right? Counties were reeling. They didn't know where they're gonna get the monies from. We're not like Miami-Dade. We're not like Broward County. We don't have $175 million in reserves. We don't. So we work together as an association statewide to come up with a physically constrained element of this that helps, that puts you at a limit. Counties that meet this criteria, you can get some cost benefits from it. That's what we've worked hard for. That's what we're wanting to stay implemented. We're not telling anybody that we want to be exempted from homestead exemption. My goodness, no, you wouldn't do that. But what we're saying is, we want that physically constrained element in the bill. So, to make that straight. And it would do good, maybe we need to post some of these notices we get up there when you say something and it's about homestead exemption, to where you don't have people blowing it all out of proportion and not understanding what the issues really are. I mean, we've worked up here many a year with the budgets and the millage rates and stuff, and finally getting the hang of it. I think we're finally getting the hang of it a little bit. But we don't know everything, but don't count us out that we would do the people like that, you know? Because when we do everybody else, we're doing ourselves too. First of all, I do myself before I would do anybody else. But that's the way I am. But, you know, from now on, people just need to ask questions before commenting. And find out the facts. I always try to find out the facts. If you see me being quiet up here, Miss Cheryl don't know all the facts. So, I'm trying to listen and learn. Sometimes it's better to listen than it is to run your mouth.
Sure. And I think too, Commissioner Sanders, tagging with what you're saying, it is a tax break for the people that own the houses, but it's a tax cut for the county. I think that's what people have not understood about it. And again, if there is a provision made that we would be reimbursed for that cut, then we win both ways, because we still get to retain our money and people get more of a tax break on their house. And like you're saying, though, a lot of people assume they know what they're talking about and don't mind tagging you about it. But anyway, enough on that.
But one more step. But there will be commissioners up there tomorrow when the House Ways and Means brings it up before on the floor
Okay.
to speak on that. That tomorrow is the county day up there for the legislative day for all the counties in the state. And probably you're gonna have some counties that's gonna be at odds with each other. But through it all, we're gonna try to work it out to maybe a helpful thing for all the citizens of Franklin County and Florida.
I kinda like what Commissioner Jones just said. He's basically saying the state should subsidize the amount of money that we're gonna lose. So we all get a break on our homestead exemption, but then that money that we lose is subsidized by the state. That's not a bad idea.
That's kind of like what the language.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that's,
If you're physically constrained,
Well,
then you should be subsidized the amount of money that you're losing, which the people get some break, and we don't have to go up on the millage rate to actually acquire it.
yeah. And if you-
Is that what the letter is saying?
That's kind of like the letter and the language is saying, and if you notice, it must be good language, because all these other counties which are not fiscally constrained, now they're jumping on the
The other
bandwagon.
Well, it's saying they need more
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, well, they need.
We
because
need
it-
information from the
read on
following
above, They
counties.
say they're not, these are not, some of these are
Physically
not
constrained.
fiscally constrained
That's
counties,
correct.
but they want in on the deal too, so.
So,
don't
so
make-
are we being asked to write a letter, Michael? Is that what we're doing?
Yes, actually, I have the letter written, I just didn't, because of some of the misunderstanding, I didn't want to send it out until we brought this up at today's meeting.
Okay,
But the
I'll make a
letter is
motion.
basically the original request from Small County Coalition to send that language for the provision for the, they call it an offset. In here I said, I can't remember the term, I used the
Well,
compensation.
that's the terminology they use up there.
Yes.
Offset.
The offset.
And I'm good with that.
Yeah, well, I made a motion, and also, if you don't mind, since counties are gonna be up there tomorrow in front of this, and for Chris to be able to represent all of us, make sure you email him a copy.
Copy of the letter.
So he'll have it, and
I
then
will.
hard copy him,
I
you know, mail it in the mail to him.
I will.
So we do have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders. Did we have a second?
Yes.
seconded it.
Seconded by
Discussion.
Commissioner Massey.
Yeah, it sounds good, and it's good. The people need a break. I'll take the break. But, usually when, once you get that break, the state they'll say, yeah, we gonna pass you the money this year. Two years down the road, they gonna mandate you take it over, so. but-
So you're saying we're still gonna be at loss, maybe not, just not this year, if it's passed?
Yeah, that's what that's how it usually be. But-
Well, the commissioners that
We-
are
we
going to
did-
Tallahassee tomorrow needs to help us,
So we
help
got
us
to
on
talk
this
about
issue.
that when we get up there, but I wanna see the people get a break. I want a break. I pay taxes too. And another thing,
We
if
all
we
do.
don't get the break, well, when we cut to them, don't fuss.
Yeah, 'cause it's gonna have to be cut, or the millage has
Yeah,
gotta
we gonna
go
have
up
to
one or two. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Item 14 is inform the board that Carroll Library branch will be closed on Saturday, April 15th, 2017. This is a Saturday after Good Friday, county holiday, basically Easter weekend. The East Point Library branch is closed on Saturdays. They don't open on Saturdays. That was more for information. There's one more item that's not on my report. This morning, Mark Urton, Attorney Schuler, received a letter from Mr. Garlick, representing Mr. Floyd, asking for an additional, I'm sorry, Commissioner, can you pass it down for me, please? An extension to come before you guys to discuss that project that he has. Originally, he had a records request for 25 years of information. That has been narrowed down to 5 years of information. There's no way Mark can get all that information to them before the next meeting, April 18th meeting, so next meeting in April. So Mark agrees that it's okay for him to get an extension. They were asking for 2 months. Mark is saying he could get it to them in a timely fashion where they can be here at the second meeting in May.
That sounds good to me.
Which we need to respond to the letter, so I just need to know how the board feels about it.
Pleasure of the board.
I'd say have it here, Mr. Schuler, do you have a problem with trying to get him here on the second meeting in May?
No, Commissioner, there's no objection from myself or Mr. Carrington to
Okay.
a 1-month extension from April 18th. We did not think it was appropriate to extend 2 months to the June 22nd meeting.
I'll make the motion for him to be on the second,
Meeting in May.
I mean, in
Second
May,
meeting
yeah.
in May.
We're gonna-
I'll second it.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Massey, second by Commissioner Sanders. Any further discussion?
I have something, please, sir.
Mm-hmm.
None of us might not be able to answer this, but how will delaying another month change his plan? How will knowing what the county's done in the past as far as variances change his plan?
I think they're looking for things that we may have granted other people variances on that pertains to the same variance that he's asking for. So
Right.
basically, he's gonna say, well, you let John do it, why can't James do
Yeah.
it? So he's looking for a precedent setting
So-
thing,
Yeah.
researching all these minutes and these
That sounds good.
actions of the
I could
board.
be wrong, but I don't know that we've had a variance where anybody else was dredging in the bay before, but I could be wrong about that. I just was asking.
Yeah, I'm
I just
not
wanted-
sure the intent is to change the plan, Commissioner, or to see
Well,
if.
The viewpoint that I have on their request is more based on the due process consideration as opposed to whatever records they may request from the county. You know, if an applicant is requesting time so that they can get prepared to make a presentation, then I think that is, it behooves us on our part to grant them a reasonable extension so they can be reasonably prepared, so that in the event of a challenge, you know, we're discussing a challenge on the merits and not a challenge on the procedure. No, gee, Judge, I didn't have enough time. They should have given me more time. So that's more the angle that I'm coming at from Commissioner Jones.
Yes, sir.
But I also think it's also reasonable, as Mr. Carrington said, to extend for a 1-month period so he can get them the records they want, so they'll have enough time to be prepared to do whatever it is they want to present at the second meeting in May.
All right. Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I know from discussions I've personally had with Mr. Floyd before it was ever presented, on more than one occasion, I'd expressed to him that the idea is great, but the plan is horrible before it was ever presented the first time. That's the only reason I bring it up.
Yes.
You know, that's the only reason I'm asking.
We do have a motion and a second on the floor.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
And that ends my report, Commissioners.